Happy Saturday, and welcome to the Ram Ashram Satsang Weekend Workshop, where you'll learn a modern Satsang method for obtaining peace, light, and love in your life. My name is Eddie, and I will be introducing the facilitator for today's event. But first, I'd like to give you a brief overview of the Satsang session. If you'll direct your attention towards your screen, you'll see the first element is Satsang. Satsang is a scientific method whereby we may obtain peace, light, and love in our life. It requires no physical skill, spiritual accomplishment, or meditation experience to begin its practice. Satsang consists of two words, Sat and Sang. Sat means positive energy, and Sang means to be with or to be in the presence of. Therefore, the word Satsang means to be in the presence of positive energy. The next element is meditation. Meditation is an important part of Satsang. When we meditate, we will draw consciousness from worldly objects and direct it inwards to focus on a single thought. In doing so, our minds become calm and our thoughts become pure, thereby allowing us to obtain higher states of consciousness, such as enlightenment, peace, light, and love. Inner orientation. There are two types of satsang, inner satsang and outer satsang. An example of outer satsang would be chanting or attending pilgrimages. When we practice outer satsang, we have the potential to change our behavior, but only through the practice of inner satsang can we obtain higher states of consciousness, such as enlightenment, peace, light, and love. The satsang that you will learn today is an inner satsang where we meditate in silence. Group orientation. These weekend workshops are structured for group participation. When we meditate as a group, our focus is improved and our personal progress along our spiritual path is expedited. By regularly attending these weekend workshops, the benefits of group participation are amplified. Joy and inner happiness. All beings wish to experience joy. Joy is the eternal longing of the soul, but only through the practice of inner satsang can we obtain a joyous state. Each time we practice satsang, our inner happiness gradually increases, ultimately culminating in a state of joy, which we experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The agenda for today consists of 3 sessions: the informative session, the practice session, and the interactive session. During the informative session, a lecture will be given about a satsang topic, the founder, or some relevant spiritual topic. During the practice session, you'll receive instructions on how to meditate, followed by a period of practice. During the interactive session, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions, or there'll be a panel discussion. And now, I'd like to introduce the facilitator for today's event. He has over 40 years of satsang experience. He's the grandson of Guru Maharaj, the founder of Ram Ashram Satsang. He was born into a satsang family, where he experienced his family members obtain states of enlightenment and lead lives of peace, light, and love. At an early age, he began traveling with the mission throughout India, facilitating satsangs, and during that time, he witnessed the positive effects that satsang could have on mankind. And upon arriving to the United States, both he and his wife continued to facilitate satsangs for local satsangees. He has led teams of satsang members in translating important satsang literature into English and has worked tirelessly to make satsang more accessible to Western and English-speaking audiences. He currently travels throughout the United States, India, and England, facilitating satsangs while maintaining his duties as a husband, a father, and an IT executive. Today, he will teach us a rare and ancient form of satsang as taught by Guru Maharaj. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Sanjeev Kumarji.
Happy Saturday, everyone. I'm glad that we are here in Satsang. Last weekend, we were talking about the role of community in spiritual journey. So Rich actually sent me interesting research done by the McKinsey Health Institute. And so they kind of define spiritual health having three elements: meaning in one's life, a sense of connection to something larger than oneself, and a sense of purpose. And they further clarify that it's not necessarily tied to religious beliefs. The meaning in one's life, a sense of connection to something larger than oneself, and a sense of purpose. So Rich, you just joined again. So I was looking at the McKinsey Health Institute's study, interesting one. So spiritual health. So about spiritual health, so first they define it as meaning in one's life, a sense of connection to something larger than oneself, and a sense of purpose. And these things, they say, could be found within a community, a calling, a form of divinity, the ability to feel rooted and mindful in the present moment, or all of the above. So I think we can kind of sort of relate to all of that. But what was interesting, two things, I haven't read the whole thing yet, but 80% of the respondents in the research from Brazil, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Vietnam found that spiritual health was extremely important to them, while only less than 45% said that in Ireland, Netherlands, and Sweden. Interesting. And then another thing which I think we kind of know, and I have like firsthand started, or actually it's very evident, or evident. 75% of the studies related to health are on physical health, and 12% on mental health, and less than 6% on spiritual health. So obviously, so if we are here, we're part of, that smaller fraction, which one understands what spiritual health, or even if we don't understand, at least we have an intent to improve our spiritual health. And, the research, but interesting thing is, the reason why I picked up this is that um, there is, throughout the world, it's not that spiritual health wasn't researched before. I mean, this is the research that has been happening lately. I think there is plenty that we stand on in terms of um, spiritual health related um, research and documentation. But I think what has happened over the years is, you know, like everything else, physical health, more tangible, mental health, far less tangible, understanding of our brain. It's like about at the beginning of this century, people said, like, we are not even in infancy in terms of understanding our brain. And so then when it comes to a spiritual health, which, interestingly articulated here as meaning in one's life, which is associated with strong mental, social, and physical health, a sense of connection to something larger than oneself, and a sense of purpose. So going back to, we also talked about service a while back. And, so you're helping others by helping, when you help others, you're actually helping yourself. So that was one of the things that Guru Maharaj actually writes in one of the chapters in his 7-volume book. And so if we look at just participating in satsang, directly or indirectly, we are leveraging this collective energy. And so individuals, so I think we underestimate the individual's contribution to the collective energy. So if we break this down, your mental state has a direct impact on your environment. Your spiritual state also has a direct impact on your environment. So if you embody love, light, and peace, it will have an impact on your environment. So collective energy has a contribution, um, from you as an individual. So it's so when you are in satsang or even outside, your impact is definitely there. Your energy impact is definitely there. So make it stronger and make it more impactful. So the community's collective energy. So whenever there is a satsang, that collective energy is basically the satsang. So then, as Eddie points out every time he talks about the overview, it's the transcendental energy. So Sat and Sang. So to be with transcendental energy is Satsang. So essentially, the transcendental energy you are trying to embody. And when all of us embody that, that becomes satsang. So connecting to something larger than oneself is essentially satsang. So, I was talking to someone this morning, and, one of the, concept that comes in the satsang discourses in India quite often is like, think about rivers, right? There might be a very polluted river that gets into the ocean. It might be a very sweet, clean water in a river that gets into the ocean and becomes the ocean. So that is essentially this concept of satsang. So, once the rivers merge in the ocean, they become the ocean. And that is, again, and not just connecting with something larger than oneself, but becoming something larger than oneself. It's be the light, become the ocean of peace. So that's the process that we are in. That's what we'll practice, to become the ocean, to become the light, to embody so much peace that it literally oozes out of you and affects everything and everyone that you know uh, comes in contact with you. To do that, basically, we have to just practice 15 minutes in the morning and evening. Um, and what we do, so that let's practice now. So basically, sit in a relaxed posture, eyes lightly closed. So now it's an inner pursuit, pieces inside. So, sensory input through the eyes. We don't want to distract our mind. Bodily movement also distracts our mind. Right now, we want to concentrate. So, what do we want to concentrate on? That's this transcendental energy, which is in form of light, right here, right now. We want to connect to it and become that light. So eyes lightly closed, still in relaxed posture, and we, envision, we concentrate, we manifest this transcendental energy in form of light. It's right here, right now, and entering our heart and then distributing throughout our body. And we are becoming one with this light. Mind wanders away, which it will. All we do is bring it back to this thought and this thought alone, that this transcendental energy in form of light is entering our heart, distributing throughout our body, and we are becoming one with this light. Mind wanders away, which it will, just bring it back, right? We'll start with music, and then music fades away, and then we go deep into silent meditation on this transcendental energy. And we then transition out with music again. Let's start now. Happy Saturday, everyone. Yeah, these days, as I say, it's I'm so glad that we are here in Satsang. It's just the fact that we focus on something positive together, that itself is, you know, makes us a small, uh, it's it's like it's a small minority as per that research we were talking about. So anyway, um, so yeah, before I talk about that research with Rich, who forwarded this, so Parul, what do you have to say? Parul, can you hear me?
Okay, there we go. Okay, yeah, so great session today. Something that's been on my mind is, what do we do after meditation? Like how you were just saying, we get to come here and experience this positive energy, and we can also do that with our own practice when we do it alone. But something that's been, heavily on my mind is, how do we take this into our everyday lives? Like, how does this go into our day and into the work we do and all of that kind of stuff? And I think the reality of satsang is that there is no ashram, there is no renouncing your lives. It's, a gift that we get to be able to live with our families and have families and do our duty in the workplace and all that kind of stuff. But I think that's where the tricky stuff after meditation really begins, where we can all leave this call and then we go back to our lives. We go back to interacting with our families, dealing with people at work, having this like teeter totter of positive and negative experiences. And, you know, something I've realized is that what happens in meditation is that we get to detach from our identities for just those little moments. And then we become the observer. And when we become the observer in our own lives, we can also embody or, try to take a neutral perspective on things that happen in our lives. So when we're in meditation, we get to experience this really positive energy. But what I found, taking this energy into your life, especially through chintan and stuff like that, like as soon as something happens, you can bring that higher energy, that higher power, like into, your life, so that you can kind of observe things from not being in it fully, not being in the experience and having to like go through those super positive or super negative experiences, but also observing things in a way where your identity isn't so tied into it. And then we can kind of come back to this like neutral baseline where we're not so caught up in every single thing, whether it's amazing or, it's kind of like derailing our lives a bit. We feel like we're like spiraling out of control. What you can do is bring that higher energy back into the room, go into chintan for a little bit, remembering the guru, remembering higher energy and light, and then kind of observing what's going on with the other person, what's going on with you. And then you can come back to like a neutral baseline, neutral perspective, even in your life, so that you're not reacting out of control or, getting super angry at someone. You can kind of take that moment to pause and, get to the root of like what's going on even in your life every day. So I was just thinking that, the bigger work we need to do is actually the fact that we're here to have responsibilities and duties and live our lives, and not just renounce those and go into some cave and meditate all the time, but actually to take these spiritual practices and let it permeate through your life, so that, not only are you becoming a better person, but also everything you're going through, this is a support for that as well. So yeah, I think that was just what I wanted to say today. Maintaining the energy we connect with here and taking that with us throughout our days.
Wow. That's profound. It's so a few thoughts that came to my mind. One, you know, I actually heard in one of the guided meditations that don't be in a hurry. So come early and leave late. So in terms of meditation, first you have to transition in and then you have to transition out. Those two, I think, aspects we kind of underestimate. So if the transition in time uh, is spent in a way that you switch, so whatever mode you are in, whatever you're thinking, whatever is going in your head, you through transition in, you have to switch over. And then in transition out, you have to absorb and imbibe it further. So you got grounded in meditation, but now you have to, it's like the process is still on. So Guru Maharaj kind of used both transition in and transition out in two different ways. One, devotional music or, um, music that helps concentration. That's one that could be part of both transition in and transition out. Music helps concentration, there's no doubt. But then he also, he used to write and then bring it into these sessions. So his view was that when you're talking about, or when you're listening to some deep spiritual, or, things that either highlight the method or the stories around, what works, what doesn't work. And, so in transition in, when you listen to things that help you concentrate, help you understand the value um, and the significance, that helps. But in transition out, you are in more receiving mode. So there could be like one word, one sentence in the whole discussion that could just trigger a whole new meaning, a whole new understanding of what you might have heard hundreds of times before. So, so he kind of made this, the transition in and transition out are extremely important, and fill them in with something that initially helps you switch over to concentrated mode. And then in the later part, uh, um, help you imbibe it, embody it further, as well as, this is the time when um, more clarity and meaning could come. So, but you make a good point that we have become an observer, we have imbibed positive energy. How do we leverage it in our daily lives? So I go all the way back to Guru Maharaj's guru. His view was like, this process should make you a better human being. What does that mean? So it's not like, what's the point of you become a better human being and you're in a, you know, you went to the Himalayas. A better human being in the current context, in the current world, and you steer it in the positive direction. That's what is needed. Right. Very well. Let's open this up. Hey, Rich, how are you? That was interesting. You know, I think there was a bunch of stuff actually when I looked at they're doing some interesting research there.
Yeah. It's some things that I think we know intuitively, but there's a little science to back it up, a little research, It reminds me, and first of all, I love what you said, power rule two, right? That's always a struggle, right? To keep even keeled after what is obviously I don't know, we call it a realignment, for lack of a better word, to what's important and what just resonates, with your soul, and how you do become better, but then of course you degrade as life happens to you, and trying to keep on that even keel um, is always a challenge, right? But obviously, if you do it over and over and over, and more and more and more, you can achieve more of that. But the great reminder, certainly. Um, but anyway, on the community aspect, right? I always think of Joseph Campbell, right? And folks here, I'm sure, know who he is, and the power of myth, and all different cultures that until very recently had to and did, by virtue of their rituals, aligned to the spiritual, right? And that's, we've gotten away from that, certainly, in the last 150 years, I guess. And in our crazy fast-paced country here, right? Social media and all these other distractions. It's very difficult at times, right? Especially social media. And we all know about how destructive that can be. So yeah, I it reminds me, my dad always used to say, a couple of things. He used to say a lot of things, but the world's going to hell in a handbasket was one of them. But specifically about religion and in general, it's dissipating, and that would have a very negative effect on, the culture and people, etc. And same idea though, right? Spiritual, lacking the innate understanding of how we connect to something larger than ourselves, which is not any more inculcated in our cultural activities, right? We've become isolated. Be isolated yet inundated with all sorts of negative messaging.
Yeah, it's interesting. They say that 80% of the respondents in Brazil, Indonesia, Nigeria, Vietnam found spiritual health to be extremely important. But in Europe, in Ireland, Netherlands, and Sweden, it was less than 45%.
Yeah, all the advanced, quote unquote, advanced cultures, right?
So sometimes I think, and this is more of a question. It's like for everyone, it's if you are, physically comfortable, does the spiritual health become less important?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Is it correlation or result? I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's more science. There's a lot more skepticism in Western culture. There's a lot more like intuitive and collective living, especially in the East. There's a lot more individual living in capitalist societies. And then also the values are totally different. And then they want answers. So if there's no answer through science, they start getting skeptical.
So like the entire thing is that all human pursuits, they start with a grand vision and end up taking us downward somehow. It's the beauty of our It's like that's how we work somehow, individually and collectively.
Mhm.
So if you think about science, science has like, we want to completely and totally become evidence-based, right? If it's no blind faith, right? So in that process, what happened, in my view, they wanted to uh, have evidence of, all things spiritual as well and religious, right? But in if you think about it, what will happen when you become completely and totally evidence-based? You will get grounded more and more with the material and physical, tangible things. And hence, if you look at the impact of science, I see two things. One, physical health, physical comforts, multiplied in terms of, science has really made tremendous progress. You know, but look at this. It's not just this statistics. If you expand and project, 75% of the studies related to health focus on physical health, 12% on mental, and 6% on spiritual health. But this is just a picture that, if you expand it and project it further, um, we have become, science itself has become very, very heavily focused on the lower realms rather than the higher realms, because evidence comes in the lower realms. And what is uh, the inner world is like made up of thoughts, less tangible and less uh, evidenceable. And then you go further into the collective, and you're now, if you transcend the world, then how do you bring evidence to that? I mean, in a way, we all experience it, but the experience is so individual that it's hard to even, there are things that you cannot even express, forget about evidence. But then in that, the other thing that it's very hard for me to fathom what science is doing in terms of climate, is like in 2 centuries or 3 centuries, we have, or yeah, probably two or less, and we have done more harm to our own planet than ever before, probably thousands of years combined. So it's very interesting. It's like, I think I need to do more research on this.
Right. It's a big subject you're talking about.
Yeah.
The impact of science on spiritual well-being, which
Yeah.
I think you can pretty much assume it's negative, but because they're kind of competing forces, really, right? Ultimately, right? Because, like I said, several hundred years ago, we were all very attuned, whatever culture we were in, because we were living and dying younger, so we had to incorporate these themes into our daily lives that were very spiritual, and that's pretty much gone in our developed nations, right? And yeah, so that's a sad note.
So Gita is saying some research also indicates that physical exercise is another form of spiritual, for example, being in nature. So yeah, it's I think it is a continuum, right? Physical, psychological, and spiritual, they all go hand in hand to a large degree. The question is the balance, as well as, where are you really focused? You could be doing exercise in nature and completely focused on yourself. And then you can also be in nature and completely focus on nature and forget about yourself. Completely different.
It's hard not to feel spiritual when you're like next to the ocean or in the trees. It's actually pretty hard to not kind of be like mesmerized, like, wow.
No. So that is another thing that I have been thinking a lot about, because satsang is not a retreat, like even the 5-session, 3-day, events that have been happening very, very regularly, almost every week in India for a long time. They are urban retreats. They are not like in the nature, right? Why? Because Guru Maharaj's view was that you can connect to this, something larger than yourself, or to this transcendental energy, or whatever else you want to refer it with. You can do that where you are right now, right? So yes, you can go to the ocean. Yes, you can go into the nature, but you can do it right here, right now as well. So it's just tuning. No?
Yeah, I also think there's like an element of having that faith that you can do that, like trusting that that energy is there. I think that it takes a little bit of that when your environment isn't exactly attuned to that, right? Like if you go in the trees, it's easy, like, oh yeah, they're here. But then like, when you're at home and maybe something's messy or whatever, like it's gonna feel a little bit harder.
Yeah. Yeah, you will have to work towards making that energy come within that environment.
The art of visualization. Hard. Very hard.
But that's what satsang, I think, is all about. Right?
It's a journey.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've talked about this again and again, like where you will meditate, if you do that practice over and over again, you will see that location become charged. There is absolutely no question in my mind. Right. All right. What else? Questions, comments, thoughts? Or the wrap up, Eddie?
Yes, I would wrap up by saying that just to sort of collect everyone's input today into a cohesive description, and I would say it's a situation where our ego um, identifies with the things in this world and the various roles. We know we take on roles, and in a sense, we know they're not who we are, because each and every day we could take a different role. Some of the ones that we practice or participate in are things like being a husband, um, being a father, uh, being a cashier, a truck driver, and so forth. But we know these things aren't truly us, but these are the roles that we play, and we believe in them. And so our ego, um, uh, you know, believes in these things, and as a result of that, our transcendental energy goes out. Because we believe we're these roles that we play, we're separate from the source from which we came, and that's the suffering that we experience, and the unhappiness and so forth. And so the question is how do we get the ego to once again believe that we're part of the source from which we came from? We can call it God. And that's through satsang. And so when we realize what you said earlier is that we belong to this higher power, that's satsang. Now the ego, during satsang, slowly gets to come to that realization that we're not these roles that we play in life, but we're a part of this God, or this ultimate energy that created everything. And it happens each time we're in satsang, so we move closer and closer to that. And as we do, the sense of self is basically starts to dissolve. And a good example of that is actually when we meditate and we focus on the light. When we actually achieve that oneness with the light, what happens is our consciousness is withdrawn from worldly objects, like we mentioned in the intro, and it's directed back towards the source. At that moment where that's perfected, you lose consciousness of your physical body and your form. So you're no longer part of that. And now your ego, basically is sensing this peace, light, love, and transcendental energy that we talk about all the time. When it does that, you truly then have a sense of purpose, and you have a meaning in life. And so when you come back out of that state, the vibrations still resonate within yourself. And now you achieve this higher state of consciousness that essentially stays with you. And it just builds every time you go into this meditative state or participate in satsang, because it's all moving you towards towards that fifth realm. So that's really what this practice does for us, without us kind of really knowing, is it removes our belief in Maya, in this world, in this changing world, which we can never find peace. And it moves us towards that state where there is no change, and where there's just truth and bliss, right? And our egos once again become attached to that, and then we achieve oneness with the Creator, and we then have true meaning in our life and our sense of purpose in this life as well. So each time we come to satsang, this is the last thing I want to close with. Each time we come to satsang, that's being done for us, whether we realize it or not. We're touching that source of transcendental energy, or the Creator, if you will. And each time we do that, it's moving us closer and closer to the realization and the consciousness that we are one with the source of all things. So that's what I wanted to say there.
Well said. Thank you, Eddie. And yeah, glad that we were here in satsang, and love, light, and peace be with you. Have a great week ahead. Let's be here in satsang again soon. And Paula, Taru, Onkar, Shivangi, Arvindji, Renu ji.
प्रणाम भैया बाय भैया प्रणाम भैया
Namaskar.
Thank you, Sanjeev ji. Have a good day, everyone.
Namaskar.
Thank you, guys.
See you all. Bye, Rich.
Bye.
भैया सभी को
Namaskar.
प्रणाम भैया
Namaskar, Renu ji. Namaskar, Geeta.
नमस्कार जी नमस्कार
प्रणाम भैया
Namaskar. Namaskar, Rajni ji. Meenakshi.
प्रणाम भैया
Namaskar.